channel it is. Scroll through. Here it is.
It looks like we are going to be, yeah, it's kicking now. So,
Yeah.
hello, everyone.
Yep.
We are live. I'm Dan, you know me, and joined by my good friend. I was like, you know what? I haven't talked to him in a while, at least on air. We've never actually done a one-on-one. We've just
I
done
know.
back bets. Figured I'd reach out. Who better to have than the man you formerly know from ESPN? I guess that's where I have to start. Like,
Yeah. No, I was going to say, like, this could be the last time someone actually gets to introduce me as, like, ESPN College Game Days. Chris Fallica, because as of January 1, that's no more.
As of January. So you get to be home for New Year's.
Yes, first time since New Year's Day 1996 that I will actually be home for New Year's Eve. Yes,
So
exactly.
I spent 5 years working on the show. You spent a significantly longer amount of time on the show. We are incredibly grateful for every opportunity that we've had in our professional careers to get to go see some pretty amazing things and travel and do all these things. But to say that it's not a lot, I think to say that it's a lot is certainly fair. So you can be honest with me. You're not going to miss the let's do a game at 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve and then catch the red eye to Los Angeles to do the Rose Bowl show at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Day. Even though I know the Rose Bowl's on the second, I get it, but like, still not going to miss that, right?
Dan, those are the events that build character. The Pac-12 the best was the best meaning the craziest, the most enjoyable was when we did the Pac-12 championship game on Friday night. Then we flew overnight to Atlanta, got to the hotel in Atlanta at about 4:30 in the morning, got about an hour a nap, went to do game day from the SEC championship game. Then we actually wound up flying up later in the day to go watch we watched some of the SEC championship game. Then we flew up to the Big Ten championship games. So we did like 4 conference championship games in the span of which was pretty crazy. No, dude, it's I loved every second of it. The ridiculousness of everything that we did, the spontaneity of it. I mean, we all love the sport, and that's why we do it, and we sleep in the off season. Is the joke, but yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird on Saturday. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I can say, like, for me, after 5 years on the show, I would say after the first year of not being on the show, I think after finally a full year of like shows without me, I was kind of like not up instinctively, like turn the TV on, we got to watch it, we got to do it. Like I was finally able to kind of like separate from it. So you spent like 25, am I correct? 27 years on the show, and way more involved in it than I was. So, sometime in like the 2040s, you'll probably it won't be like, oh, I've got to get up and get ready to do the show. But I really do appreciate
from your lips to God's ears, by the way, on 2040.
Well, I mean, I'm just extrapolating. Hey, we'll be positive. It's almost the New Year's time for positivity and all that. So I really appreciate you joining. We'll start with, I think, where we probably should start. I mean, we'll talk a couple of the New Year's Six Bowls after the fact, but I really wanted to get your thought on the playoff in particular. My mind has been twisted in a pretzel over this first game. The entire run up to like right now, I have actually been of the opinion, and I will pop this up now. The Fiesta Bowl, the first one, TCU, Michigan a 7.5 point favorite. I think it opened around 9, got bet down a little bit, 58.5. I feel like I've been out on an island through like the couple of weeks in the run up to this that I actually kind of like TCU in this spot. And as we get closer to it, I'm kind of like doubting myself. Where do you sit on this game?
Yeah, I was looking for every possible reason to bet TCU as well, just as a contrarian type play. But I just don't know ultimately if I can do it. The number has come down. I will say this: maybe there is a TCU team total over that might be worth looking at. I'll be fully honest. I have not looked at the derivative markets in those games yet. But TCU, as you know, following the Big 12 like you do, they've got dudes on the outside that I think are going to give Michigan some problems. And I could see them scoring a few more points in this game than a lot of people think. I know the school of thought is Michigan's going to dominate in the trenches of both sides of the ball. And ultimately, Donovan Edwards will break a couple of long runs like he did against Ohio State. But look, Kansas State did have success in the trenches. Texas had success in the trenches as well for a good part of that game. Like the blueprint's there, but Duggan has made plays time after time. Quentin Johnston is going to be a guy that I think can make some plays. Like I said, they're deep at back with Kendre Miller and DeMarcado. Like I think they're going to get some points. Is it going to be enough to get the cover or the outright win? I don't know, but I'm with you because it's just this little inkling inside of me that thinks Michigan's getting a little bit too much love. And I don't want to say overrated because they went to Ohio State and played. They won there and they pulled away in the fourth quarter. But you look at some of the other games, and I know TCU has been involved in one-possession games the entire season, but for this game to be viewed now as like a foregone conclusion, Michigan is double-digit points better, but basically than TCU. I don't know. It would be TCU or pass for me.
So just at FanDuel, I didn't have a chance to really dig in even more, but I just had FanDuel open. TCU's team totals 24.5.
Okay.
So
I can get behind that.
But if you like their team total, then you're probably going to start talking yourself to thinking about an over maybe in that game. Maybe not like if their team total is going to hit and they cover, like it feels like the derivative there is not great. My thing about Michigan, I actually think they're getting a little bit too much credit for the win over Ohio State from the standpoint of, with all due respect, Michigan, like they did what they do in that game. Like they like give Jim Harbaugh credit. That team has been molded in his image to play the way that he wants them to play. At the same time, that game was very much about what Ohio State could not and did not do, particularly late in that game, and how poorly like Jim Knowles adjusted to anything that Michigan was doing on offense. But I don't remember the stats specifically, but Michigan had like 5 plays for 300 yards, something like that. And then like 3 yards per play the rest of the game. Like they did not do a ton against Ohio State. As far as TCU is concerned, one of the things I've kind of talked to myself about, you talked about Texas' successes in the trenches, particularly on defense. We did not see TCU's offensive line get manhandled like that elsewhere, but like Michigan's defensive line, maybe talent-wise, I'm not sure how it like man-to-man, like recruiting rankings and all that compared to Texas, but like scheme, success, like how good they have been in terms of on the field has been a better defense than Texas. So that's certainly alarming. But I also think TCU is just so well coached. You look back at that Texas game and what Joe Gillespie and that defense did, how well drilled they were against Texas in that game makes you think that with 3 weeks to prepare, like the game plan is simple. Like for Michigan, like you're going to go into it with the idea of we have to make JJ McCarthy beat us. Like I don't think that's a secret. I think everyone knows that Michigan's going to run the ball. They're going to want to run the ball. They're going to try to run the ball. Like that's what they do. And it's not easy. Like we saw it, like Donovan Edwards might be an upgrade from Blake Corum talent wise. I mean, Blake Corum certainly was a bell cow for them. And I maybe we're overrating Donovan Edwards a little bit by comparison. I don't know. But another thing that's also interesting, and it kind of came up today to me, this idea that TCU's bye week was in week 3. Like they had their bye week September 17th and have played 11 straight games after that. And they're
4 weeks off going to do them well.
Yeah. Like they're talented, but like, look, man, the problem that programs like TCU have in comparison to programs like Michigan and then up the ladder to like Georgia is the quality of depth. And it's very hard to overcome injuries and things like that. And they dealt with injury problems throughout the season, managed to pull a lot of rabbits out of their rear ends. And obviously the injury bug certainly worked in their favor in terms of opposing quarterbacks most of the season. This is going to be the healthiest they're going to be since the opening week of the season. Like they are going to be healthy for this game. So I'm just kind of fascinated to see what happens and just think that maybe TCU, hearing how much they suck and how like some people don't think they belong here and how everyone's talking about how great Michigan's been, kind of makes me, and maybe it's just contrarian. Maybe that's what it is.
It's so funny, Dan, because like all we've heard for however many years now is, oh, we need all these different teams. We need new blood. We need fresh blood in the playoff. And then here are people in the final week of the season trying to be, TCU now. Alabama's still better. So put them in. So like, so what is it? You want a new team like TCU in, or you just want Alabama in every year? Like you can't have it both ways. But you're right. Like the Michigan thing, like I think there is kind of a little bit of a little bit of a tax just because of that fourth quarter against Ohio State. Like Ohio State led at halftime. It was a one-possession game entering the fourth quarter. Like you need to take. It's the whole recency bias factor. Remember the Illinois game. Remember the Maryland game. Like there were games where they were not great. So I'm really curious to see how this one plays out. Like I said, if it would be TCU or pass for me.
I love it. The nightcap from Atlanta, a de facto home game for the Georgia Bulldogs. Shout out to everyone who is going to, like me, who is going to be sitting on their couch instead of like celebrating New Year's. Love that they put these games on New Year's Eve at 8 o'clock. Nevertheless, Ohio State and Georgia, I think it's probably the game that I think most people have wanted to see for the last couple of years. I mean, Georgia, Alabama, obviously, Alabama, like you put Ohio State in that mix because I think the common thought has been, well, Ohio State has the talent on offense to maybe push Georgia more than a lot of other teams do. Georgia's a 6.5 point favorite. The total is 62. Are you surprised it hasn't gone up to 7 or above, or you think the number is where it should be?
No, I think the number is where it should be. And I know it's interesting because I think that there are a lot of people out there that think this number should be even lower, that the power ratings are much closer than the 6.5. And this appears to be, it's interesting because I get sometimes too involved in the psychology of analyzing the number. And when I see a favorite of 6.5, I see that as the book saying, we are happy going into the game meeting Ohio State, knowing that everyone's going to lay the 6.5, take Georgia wins by 7. All the favorite players win. The book hangs that number up, and it doesn't go to 7, or now it's dropped from 7. It's 6.5 steady, knowing that the only money that's coming in is Georgia. That would concern me as a Georgia bettor. Now, if you just want to look on the field, like you would assume that Kirby Smart defensively will enjoy facing a quarterback that's not a run threat. C.J. Stroud is not a run threat, and he can bring a whole bunch of different looks into this thing and get some pressure in creative ways. And on the field as well, you hit on Jimmy Knowles earlier about how Michigan were able to get a bunch of big plays. I think back to a couple of years ago in the national title game when Alabama played Ohio State, and you saw Sark and the Alabama offense managing to get Devontae Smith on a linebacker, and the video of Tough Borland chucking down the field trying to catch up to the Heisman Trophy winner. Like, I can see that happening again with Georgia. Now that Mitchell's healthy and you're going to have Bowers and Washington on the field, like the Georgia offense has not gotten, I don't think, the recognition and that they've deserved for what they've done this year, and they haven't fully been healthy for a while, and they did a lot of it without Mitchell. But I would think that the Georgia offensive staff will be able to figure some things out. This could be a higher scoring game, I think, than people think. Yeah, because I do think Ohio State will have the ability to score some points on some big plays. So I would love to be able to talk myself into holding my nose a little bit and just kind of taking the 6.5, because it appears that is the sharp side, the right side with where the number is. Because we were talking a month ago about, maybe Ohio State would be a slight favorite over Georgia on a neutral, or maybe it's a pick 'em game, or maybe Georgia's only 1 or 2. And now it's sitting there at 6.5 off of one bad quarter. And Ohio State for a month getting bad mouth about they don't belong in the playoff. Like, we'll see. Georgia is better, but I don't know. I don't want to lay 6.5, or I'd look more towards the over than I would particular side.
So I'll put up this comment from Brian, who is one of our BetSperts teammates. He's the guru of the Fantasy Life app. So if you like the Fantasy Life updates that you get for your fantasy football team, Brian is the guy. And he says, is he crazy to like the game total over in this one? And you just touched on it. Like, I don't think so at all. Like, I think there's certainly a path for Ohio State to score points in this game. That said, I think this is a referendum game on a lot of people on the Ohio State side of things. First and foremost, I think Ryan Day, like, you don't get judged by beating Michigan State. You don't get judged by beating Indiana. You don't get judged by beating some of these other teams in the Big Ten. You get judged by beating Michigan, and you're at Ohio State. You're expected to be in these kind of games and excels. And I've just never certainly been overly impressed with him as a coach. I think he's too conservative for his own good. I don't think that team handled adversity well at all against Ohio State. or against Michigan, excuse me. The other guy who I'm really interested to watch, and I mean, it's the obvious thing in the world, is CJ Stroud in this game. I think there's been some school of thought, like for most of the season, I think a lot of people thought he was QB1 in the draft coming up. We've now seen a lot of the people who are involved in this process, like have him behind Will Levis now, which I'm not going to get into that debate. Yeah. I think the thing about CJ Stroud that interests me is if CJ Stroud has a clean pocket, he is unreal. Like he is going to make every throw on the field when he has time to throw the ball. I have not been overly impressed with him when he gets off schedule. When teams have been able to make him uncomfortable, I don't think he's got the creative ability that Bryce Young has. And you said he's not a running threat either. So Kirby's smart, and you talked about it earlier, the ability that he's going to have to get pressure from different kind of ways and different kind of places. Georgia's not a team whose pass rush has been overly threatening this year, although when they needed it to, they've certainly ramped it up. Like against Tennessee, they were able to get to Hendon Hooker when they needed to. They've been able to find that gear when they've needed to, but I'm just kind of interested to really get to see CJ Stroud in this Ohio State offense, which has been pushed around by more physical teams. Like even Iowa, like if Iowa could have legitimately have made a game against Ohio State if their offense was like average. Like, because Ohio State started every possession in Iowa territory, but the Iowa defense did such a good job of forcing them into field goals, into keeping them out of the end zone. Physical, tough defenses have been hard for Ohio State. And that's kind of where it is. It's just like the caliber of athlete. We saw Michigan able to stop Ohio State. Although, again, Ohio State in that game got off to a really good start on offense, and they just couldn't finish drive. They scored on their opening drive. Then they couldn't finish drives, and then kind of it settled into where Michigan fought back into it. But like, this is the best defense they faced. And then when they faced other good defenses, it's been a little bit of a challenge for them to be able to finish drives. Part of me, I'd love to see this be like the classic game we've hoped we would have gotten to see between Ohio State and either Georgia or Alabama the last 2 years. Just a little worried that Georgia's going to still have that chip on their shoulder because Georgia's really only played like 1 or 2 complete games all year. Like even the SEC championship game, they were just kind of bored. Like their offense was great in that game, but their defense was not.
Right. Even the Tennessee game wasn't necessarily a complete game because you had the weather and they kind of let their foot off the gas somewhat late in that game as well. The score was much more lopsided than the final score indicated. The other thing about Ohio State too, like if you go back, I went back and looked, the last 16 games against ranked opponents, they're 3-13 against the number. So that's interesting to me that they have not necessarily been able to fare well. Is it the power ratings are just off with Ohio State, or I don't know, but I think that's a little interesting, and you do have a rare instance here where you do get them as a dog.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the same thing. If I had to venture a guess, I think it's kind of the same thing we saw with Alabama this year, which is with Ohio State. Like so much of their power rating is going to be priors. And like, you know, they're going to play at a high level usually, and their recruiting level is going to be higher than just about everybody else they play. And then maybe the product on the field is not so great. So, I mean, real quick, Georgia, Michigan, we think that's going to happen. Let me say this. Who do you think, before we move on to other games, who do you think has a better chance of beating Georgia, presuming the first game goes the way it does, Ohio State or Michigan?
I think Ohio State has a better chance because I think they're more explosive on the offensive side of the ball. I think whatever problems Georgia presented to Michigan last year, I think those same problems present themselves. I think it could be a situation where, remember last year, I think for like a month, this is the way Michigan manhandled Ohio State and then blew out Iowa. Like all people did for about a month was just talk themselves into thinking Michigan was going to win this game. Remember, Georgia had lost the SEC championship game, so they were seen as vulnerable, and the game was over after about 7 minutes. But I still think the same problems that Georgia gave Michigan last year present themselves, and I think if Georgia were to lose, it would be against Ohio State, not against Michigan.
I think that's a pretty common thought. I tend to agree with that one as well. Well, we still have a little bit more time with you. You brought up some of the other New Year's 6 games. So I'll just kind of go in order. You brought up the Orange Bowl, which is Tennessee and Clemson. Clemson, a 4.5-point favorite, the total 63.5. And just, I mean, it couldn't be a better named bowl, the Orange Bowl, between two teams that are orange.
Exactly, and this number is on the move too. By the way, like I've seen some 5.5s. I've seen some sixes as well, and we got there with the three at the wire here at Gulfstream. Sorry, I'm punching pick fours and pick fives as we go. That oh well, that horse got bet down from 12-1 in the morning line, went up to 3-1. Unbelievable. That's why you can't play golf. Well, there were a couple of scratches in the race, so that's understandable. But yeah, so we cashed some early pick fours and some pick fives, which is nice. But yeah, the majority of the money is on Tennessee in this game, and I just don't get it. But like you're starting Joe Milton without your wide receivers against the Clemson defense, where most people are still playing. You don't have the DJ problem at quarterback anymore. You got Klubnik playing, and you're in a situation where you know the way Dabo sells this stuff. It's an opportunity. You won an ACC title. Oh, poor old Clemson. Yep, we're down. We're done. We're no good. And you win the ACC. You win 11 games. You win the Orange Bowl. And poor old little like that. He lives for stuff like this. And you got a bunch of players who are looking to threat, but like maybe they got some guys out. But at the same time, they've recruited better than Tennessee. Like the depth that they've got future stars that are just waiting to play. Whereas I just don't think Tennessee quite has the depth. And with the I think the opt-outs will hurt Tennessee much more than they will Clemson. So yeah, I actually got in early on Clemson minus 4.5, and I've seen this number on the move today to 6. So I can't play it at 6, being that I already got it at 4.5. But if you're playing some money line parlays or whatever, I would think Clemson will be a pretty solid leg in a money line parlay as well. You know what? The other game that was on the move today, number wise, was UCLA, and like I had spoken to some people out there in the last 10 days or so, asking about who was going to play, and they told me that DTR and Charbonnet were practicing, and by all indications, they were going to play. So, like, I don't know if it's official that they're going to play, or if the entire Pitt team had some bad water across the border, if they went into Juarez and they're under the weather. But that game jumped from like 5.5. There's a lot of 8s out there now, so I'm curious to see what actually got out there and what was reported, and why that number moved to 2.5 points in the span of a couple hours.
Yeah, I noticed that too. So I was putting together so we do our show's gonna be at 3. We pick every game, and I had put UCLA minus 5.5 when I put my notes together yesterday, and then I was building the graphics for today, and I was like, it's out to 7, and I'm with like. I thought it was assumed that DTR and Charbonnet, like DTR was going to play. Charbonnet I knew was kind of iffy, but DTR, everything I'd seen said he was going to play. And then, yeah, I mean, I'd like to back UCLA in this spot, but like it's the Sun Bowl. Like you've seen Miami play in the Sun Bowl. Like you never know what's going to happen in El Paso around New Year's Eve. Thing I noticed today, weirdly, this is Chip Kelly's first bowl game at UCLA.
Yeah, because I mean they had the game canceled because of COVID.
Yeah, and then they didn't make it. In 2020, there weren't really bowl games, and then they missed bowls the first 3 years. I was just like, huh. I was like, what is Chip Kelly's bowl record? Is he a guy who coaches well? And it was like 2-2. I was like, that doesn't seem right. And then like, yeah, it was.
They were all BCS games.
Exactly, they were. You also wanted to talk a little bit about the Cotton Bowl. Tulane USC. This is a 2-point spread. The last I looked for USC. Classic like motivation spot for one team versus the other, but talent edge pretty severe one way or another. I like a lot of it for me. Like if I'm going to place a bet on this game, I definitely want to know what's going on with Caleb Williams and that hamstring.
It is, you would say, talent advantage USC, but at the same time, this is a Tulane team that I think defensively isn't bad. I mean, they went to Manhattan and they beat Kansas State there and held them to, I think it was 17-14 or 17-13, somewhere along those lines. And they got a quarterback in Michael Pratt who can run, and they got a 1,100-yard back. And look, or if you're USC after getting your doors blown off and you lose a couple offensive linemen in the Pac-12 title game, and Addison's not playing, your defense has been bad all year, and now Caleb isn't 100% healthy. Like, I don't know, man. It screams a play on Tulane to me.
That's an interesting way to think about it for sure. I just, to me, I definitely want to see that might be one you just stay out of until you kind of see what Caleb Williams does. Like, how does that hamstring look? Is it a situation where he plays a little bit and then he comes out of the game because the hamstring's bothering him? Like, there's no reason to risk him. It was like if you watch, I don't know how much of the Duke UCF game yesterday you watched, but like John Rice Plumlee, like, wasn't going to run as much as he normally would. Like, there were a couple of plays in that game where you could tell, like, baseball season, like, no joke, baseball season was on his mind. He wasn't going to risk it with a bad hamstring there. The last one you wanted to touch on, and I mean, it's a good one to touch on. If you've never been, you got to go up over my shoulder. You see the Texas USC Rose Bowl, Penn State, Utah. I think the Salt Lake Tribune called it the last great Rose Bowl because, every time you get the Pac-12 champion and the third place team in the Big Ten together at the granddaddy of them all, it's going to be a fireworks, but no lie, it's going to be great every year. Spectacular television. Utah 2-point favorite, totals 52.5. I have a player prop I want to sell you on, but first I want to hear what your thoughts are on this game.
Yeah, I like Penn State plus the points. I know a lot of people are going simple handicap, Cam Rising and Kyler Whittingham against James Franklin and Sean Clifford. I don't know if it's as simple as that, though. Even without Porter, I think the Penn State defense is pretty good. I know they don't necessarily have a marquee win this year. They have a lot of young guys, I think, who can play even. And obviously they got Parker Washington who's out, but they've got some young upcoming guys who I think are going to be really good players. And I think we're not really sure how good Penn State is just because they had that bad fourth quarter against Ohio State and they got blown out against Michigan. And then what's your best win after that? Going on the road to beat Auburn or going on the road to beat Purdue? I don't know. But I think Utah is going to be more affected by players not being on the field than Penn State is. Losing Dalton Kincaid, the Utah offense struggled mightily without Dalton Kincaid during the season. And if he's not on the field, we'll obviously have to see how the Utes can adjust offensively to moving the ball. But yeah, I'm gonna take the points here with Penn State in this game. And before you get to your player prop, I know it's a terrible segue back for you. The other you were talking about, are they like John Rice Plumlee playing, not playing? Like the Sugar Bowl is really interesting to me because we know Will Anderson and Bryce Young aren't playing, but are they playing? Or are they just going to go out there for like a quarter and, okay, we went out, we played, we didn't knock out, we stuck it out for a quarter of the game, now we're going to turn it over? Because that's kind of the whole key to that game, I think. Like if Will and Bryce are playing, like I can't see Kansas State beating them. But if it's kind of like we're taking the field one more time with my brothers, and then we're gonna be out by halftime, that's a different story, and that could make Kansas State attractive. Anyway, so back to your player prop.
Well, real quick, I think that I just hope that as we get close to that game, that number goes up because you and I have both been on the same page with Alabama all year. I don't care if both of those guys play. If I was going to have to take a side, I'd take Kansas State. But I've talked myself into the over in that game because if Bryce Young plays even for a half, I don't think Kansas State's going to stop him. And Alabama's defense hasn't been impressive this year. So if I were to play anything there, I'd go with an over. But nevertheless, my player prop, I want to sell you on this, and I might be crazy on this. My player prop for the Rose Bowl is Micah Bernard, Utah running back, anytime touchdown. Micah Bernard was the player that they had to move to cornerback last year for the Rose Bowl. He got 2 weeks to prep for that, and they threw them out there to try to defend Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. And if you remember how that went, like good guys who have played cornerback their whole life and are going to be first-round picks in the NFL have struggled to defend those guys. And Micah Bernard had a nightmare of a day because, of course, he was going to have a nightmare of a day. And Kyle Whittingham singled him out after the game, not negatively, but positively, just to say, like, this is a guy who did as well as he could. He stepped up when the team needed him to, and we appreciate the fact that he put himself above the team. So now they're back in the Rose Bowl. And I understand where you're coming from with Penn State, but like Utah's a team that I am no longer doubting. I doubted them a little bit once they were playing pretty poorly, at least on defense in the middle of the season, early in the year. But like Utah is a team I'm not doubting. I'm just not doing it anymore. I don't care who's playing. I don't care. Like, I think they're going to be able to do what they want to do in this game. I kind of like an over there just because it's the Rose Bowl and I hope they're scoring, but I really do believe Kyle Whittingham's going to try to get Micah Bernard the ball. And because Jaquindon Jackson has stepped up so much for them. And of course, like I like Utah because their quarterback was a quarterback at Texas and the running back was a quarterback at Texas. Because Jaquindon Jackson has stepped up so much, it's probably not going to be as lopsided as you might see otherwise for a running back. He was clearly the number one. You're probably looking at like a -2 something, but like you might get -1 something on Micah Bernard anytime touchdown. So once those come out, I'm going to play that. We're almost through the first quarter with no points in the Pinstripe Bowl. That should surprise literally nobody.
Yeah, exactly. I had a Syracuse under 14.5 team total, but just with no Robert and I and no Sean Tucker, that was kind of an auto play. So we'll see if it's a nice day in New York, by the way. Too. There's no bad weather or freezing cold like it has been, but
yeah.
So we'll see if we can keep the orange out of the end zone here.
Yeah, we screwed up with our timing of the show. We've been doing like the Thursday to Wednesdays on our show because we do our show Thursday afternoon, and then I forgot that this game was going to kick off. But I've tweeted it. I took the under. Like, I don't know why the total for this game was in the 40s. Like,
no,
there's no reason why this win should have been in the 40s. Man, it's good to chat. It's been a while.
Same here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Been too long. We'll have to catch up again in the new year once we get towards maybe for the championship game or once we get going closer to some golf and some March Madness.
It'll be a lot quieter for you around the national title game than we've normally had with you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Good luck in hopefully you enjoy your time in Nashville. Hopefully you enjoy, like legitimately, hopefully you enjoy your first New Year's home in a million years. It'll be weird, but I hope you enjoy it. And best of luck. As next time we talk to you, we will be able to refer to you as Fox Sports Chris Fallica.
Exactly. Do I get a robot?
I hope so.
Please, that would be great. I want like bedspreads to, I want you, the creative person, to kind of digitally enhance a robot for me to come on the air. That's a task for you.
I will add that to the list of things to do. Best of luck with everything with the new gig. We look forward to talking to you soon, and good luck with every one of your bets with the national championship, the playoff, and everything in between. And we'll talk soon.
And Texas -3 tonight.
Hook 'em, baby. Don't have enough time to talk about that one, but if you guys want to hear what I have to say about Texas and the Arch Manning Quinn Ewers dynamic in 2023, tune into the Blogger Bowl here in about 30 minutes. I will have a breakdown of my neuroses over the game tonight and the future of Texas football as only I can. But we appreciate it. I will talk to you then, and Chris, I will talk to you soon, man.
Take care, buddy.